Some nightmares don't live only in your head. They grow up with you, watching, waiting, until one day they finally step out of the dark. This is my story. Asterisk, I always knew she would come for me. Sooner or later, it was bound to happen. And now, two glowing eyes were staring at me from the darkness. The first time I saw it, I was just 10 years old. I was a small child in a broken home, with parents lost to alcohol. No one ever believed me. My father stood trial for the murder of my mother. He was so drunk he couldn't even remember what happened. But I remembered perfectly. I saw him. And something else. No one believed me. Although my father was innocent, he never lived to see his release. I was raised by my grandmother. We lived in poverty, in a forgotten village at the edge of a forest. We barely survived on her pension. When I turned 13, I started working for a local landowner. The work was brutal and the pay was small, but at least we didn't go to bed hungry day after day. I saw young people fall into the pit of drinking, families falling apart, and children suffering. I swore to myself I'd never fall into that swamp. I studied and worked, wore torn sneakers in the summer and old boots inherited from my grandfather in the winter. I endured the bullying of classmates. I had one goal: to leave and never come back. I got into university to study law. I had never seen my grandmother so happy. From the money I saved at construction jobs, I bought a honey cake and a bottle of red wine for us. It was the happiest day of my life. During my studies, I lived in the university dorm, but returned every weekend to help my grandmother. She always said she had everything, but I still came. Then one day, in my second year, she died. A neighbor called to say she was unwell. I left everything and rushed back, but I didn't make it. I never went back to that village again. I studied during the day and worked at night. I nearly broke myself. At 1.80 meters tall, I weighed only 65 kilos. Some days I ate just a packet of instant noodles or bread with water. I barely slept. 4 years passed like this. In my 5th year, a practicing lawyer, Sergei Pavlovich, began teaching one of our courses. He noticed my persistence and offered me a part-time job at his firm. I worked for him a few hours after lunch, and on weekends handled his private matters. In his free time, Sergei Pavlovich took on questionable, off-the-record work for VIP clients. At first I was uneasy, but over time I realized my name was never mentioned. I was never at risk. Around then I made 3 friends, 2 guys, Mark and Dennis, and a girl, Vera. I even thought Vera liked me. My life was slowly changing. I dressed better, rented a 1-room apartment. I felt the swamp leaving me behind. Until I saw it again. Mark was Sergei's only son. He barely attended classes, spent nights in clubs, smoking and drinking. But when sober, he was a good guy. He loved music and secretly performed with his band, dreaming of being on stage while his father wanted him in the firm. That evening, Mark, Dennis, and I gathered at Mark's apartment to watch football and drink beer. I rarely drank. The next day I had a delicate task from Sergei Pavlovich, so I sipped mine slowly. Mark was in a bad mood after a fight with his father, saying he didn't want his money anymore. By evening he was doubting himself. They opened a bottle, then another. By the end of the second half, neither could stand. I threw them on the couch, slammed the door, and left. When I stepped out of the building, something felt off. Mark's apartment was on the 3rd floor. I turned back. Why was the light on? They could barely move. A second later, dark liquid splashed against the window. I froze. Then I saw a silhouette. My heart stopped. It was the horror from my childhood. A massive black head with backward curving horns, a wide mouth, and those eyes red. Flaming eyes looking straight at me. I heard screaming but couldn't tell where it came from. My breath caught. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. Trembling, I pulled out my phone, looked again. Movement. Someone. I slammed my palm against the glass. But my hand slid down, leaving a smear of blood. I don't remember calling the police, climbing the stairs, or banging on the door until they came. I told them everything, even about the monster with red eyes. They stared at me strangely and broke down the door. They didn't have to. Mark opened it himself. Confused, drunk, covered head to toe in red. Liquid dripped from his fingertips. The smell wasn't tomato sauce. The police rushed inside. I followed. I felt sick. Everything was red. On the sofa, armchair, table, pieces of a human body. Dennis's head sat on the windowsill. My legs gave way. They interrogated me for hours, sent me to a psychiatrist when I told them about the monster. My blood showed only a small trace of alcohol. In the end, they didn't charge me. All evidence pointed to Mark. Sergei tried to save his son, but Mark was so drunk he remembered nothing. He confessed. He was sentenced to 10 years in a maximum security prison. 2 years later, he died there. Sergei's firm collapsed. After the trial, he avoided me completely. I worked and worked. By 35, I built my own law firm with 50 employees. No wife, no children, no one. But at home, I had a library of mystical books. Years ago, I'd started searching for the monster I'd seen twice. Finally, a seller of occult books found a text for me. The demon's name was Zeroth, one of the ancient lords of the abyss. It devours lives and pins murders on those nearby. Those accused never live long. I lived with success on the outside and horror on the inside. Then one day, at lunch, someone called my name, the name no one had used in years. It was a childhood classmate, Ivan. His son was in trouble with drugs. He'd begged me for help. He had no money. I agreed to at least look into it. He'd missed the last bus, had nowhere to stay. Out of pity, I invited him to my home. He brought cheap vodka. The smell still made me gag. I went to bed, locking my door. I woke to a noise. It was 1:30 a.m. Something crashed in the living room. I grabbed a heavy statuette and stepped quietly. Moonlight streamed in. Ivan lay snoring on the sofa, that movement, that 2 blazing eyes in the corner. Massive horns, claws, Zeroth. My hand dropped. My greatest fear stood before me. I finally caught you. Its voice dripped like tar. What do you want? Your life, it said simply. You escaped me twice. Not this time. It stepped closer. Minute by minute, year by year, I will devour your soul. I backed toward the door. Why me? There's something in you. Like your mother. She wasted it. Your friend had it too. But you'll last a long time. I reached the hall door. Locked. My fingers shook. Zeroth came slowly, saliva dripping. I ran into the bathroom, slammed the door, dialed my secretary. No answer. My neighbor. The phone flew out of my hands, smashed against the wall. Zeroth stood 2 steps away, walking through the door as if it wasn't there. You really thought you could shut me out? It hissed. No one will save you. You lived your life in vain. Tonight it ends. I was cornered. Then I saw movement in the mirror. My grandmother's reflection. She looked at me with a soft smile. The demon's reflection turned to her. Her lips moved silently. Then she rushed at Zeroth in the mirror. They both vanished. The monster in front of me was gone too. I slid to the floor and fainted. For months I searched for answers. A bookseller directed me to an exorcist. When I told him my story, he said I was lucky. My grandmother had sacrificed herself for me. Only self-sacrifice could stop Zeroth. Now you're safe, he said. That sacrifice will protect you for the rest of your life. And what about her soul? Nothing bad. Self-sacrifice is always rewarded. Zeroth will have to find a new victim. I walked out of his office, but deep inside I knew this wasn't over. Some stories never truly end. They just wait in the shadows for the next chapter. If this one chilled you, subscribe to Untold Scary Truths for more horrifying real-style stories, urban legends, and chilling encounters you'll never forget.